It didn't. It started now. Yeah. Thank you so much, Refika, for your nice introduction of me. I am very happy to be here with you, and I would like to thank those who have invited me here. It's a pleasure and honor with you, such a distinguished audience. Yes, I mean, last week I was in Sarajevo to participate Gaza Tribunal meeting. It's like Russell Tribunal. I mean, maybe you know or you heard about it. It was about the prosecution of crimes by the United States in Vietnam. It is a similar one, but this time we are just talking about Gaza Tribunal. It was a successful program, but we were all sad, of course. There is a genocide going on in Gaza, and it's terrible there. Things are getting worse and worse. Not only the bombardments, but I mean, thirst and famine is going on, and many people are continue dying there, and no one is able to stop it. And there, I just, in my presentation, mentioned the fact that, I mean, after a long way walking through a historical process, we have come to a very bad place, very bad position, actually. We realize that we are not effective moral agents at all. I mean, not only the Muslims, but all humanity. This should change in a sense, and this is another war starting with Gaza going on. But this war, I think, is going on in seminar rooms or conference rooms or in virtual seminar rooms like this one. We need to find a way of changing this world order and to stop any genocide before happening, and to stop any intent to do such things in future. But this requires a change of perspective in almost every sense. Almost everything we have been doing should be wrong to face such a genocide at the end of the first quarter of the 21st century. My talk in that sense, in a sense, I mean, is about this subject. I'm going to talk about agency, actually, in the end. I'm going to say things about big questions of academia, are they ours or not? But I mean, my intention is about how we can regain agency, and as I have said, stop such atrocities happening all around the world, not only in Gaza. Anyway, if you have any other questions about Gaza Tribunal as well, I would be happy to answer them at the end of my presentation. I have prepared a bunch of slides for you. I mean, since they are not very nice slides, so to say, this is just for helping you follow what I am saying. It's very hard, I know, to follow a presentation on screen. And I will say something else. I mean, most probably, most of the things I will be talking about would be too theoretical for you. And of course, anyone can leave anytime he or she likes. I would not be offended. I mean, don't worry. Okay. This is our question. Are the big questions of academia ours? This ours is actually referring to Muslim people, Muslim academicians like us, by the way. This is the flow that I have prepared. There are 5 headings. I'm going to talk about, as I have said, agency first, about 2 concepts, vision and positioning. I am going to relate these concepts to certain development, recent in the sense that the last couple of 2 centuries, that topic is elimination of metaphysics. Then I will go say a few things about contemporary scientific method and mainstream projects of the academia. Finally, I am going to make some suggestions about what to do, I mean, in academia. What should Muslims do in academia? And I will try to finish my presentation with that. I hope in an hour, I mean, or before an hour, I can finish with my presentation. First of all, I would like to say that uh, my presentations about agency, about proactivity. As I have said, I mean, Islamic world is passing through a very problematic time. I mean, for a couple of centuries or so, because I mean, we fail to participate in life in general and in academia in particular. As I have said, I mean, Gaza is a very nice example. In the end, we are not, as ourselves, a part of anything going on in the world. We are not solving any real problems. I really don't know if we are doing what we are doing, actually. Therefore, I want to introduce this concept of proactivity. I mean, in this, to mean that we need to starting point of our actions. We need to be our origin of our actions, and we need to do our research accordingly, not in a reactive way, but in a proactive way. But in order to answer this question, what should I do proactively? We need to answer the question where we are actually. And this is actually a question not about a place in the universe, but actually in a historical process. This question might be replaced with when am I? I mean, not where am I, but when am I? And in order to answer such a question, and in order to be proactive, one need to have a vision in the sense that we need to see beyond the horizon, and we want to decide where we want to see ourselves in future. And accordingly, we need to start acting to reach that goal, to reach that vision. What would be our vision is a very important question. Vision is a very important tool, actually, since if you have a vision, if you know where to go, if you know what to achieve in future, as a young academician or academicians in general or humanity in general, there is a vision of humanity as well. Since that vision provides you a way of seeing the current moment in view of a future moment. There is a saying by French people, they say that the opportunities are only meaningful for those who are ready for them. If you are not make yourself ready, you cannot see if something is an opportunity even. Or if you are, for example, having some problems now in your career, in your academic life, in your life in general, or as humanity through a historical period, this vision, if you have a vision, might help you endure the difficulties you are facing. In that sense, having a vision is quite important. But for us Muslims, we consider ourselves existing in an original stage, a sahne in Turkish. In that sahne, I mean, the ultimate point where we want to see ourselves in future is Mahkeme-i Kübra, of course, meaning great, great court. I mean, we visualize ourselves before our God and giving an account of what we have done in this life. And this is our vision. And with respect to that vision, we are trying to position ourselves in this original stage. And the claim that I am going to make today at the very beginning is that we, the Muslim academicians, are not comfortable in our current positioning in the academia. We do not think that, I personally am. We do not think that, we are doing our research, we are doing what we are doing uh, in line with our ultimate vision, that point that we see in the future or afterlife in Mahkeme-i Kübra. Therefore, we have to revise our perspective. We have to reposition ourselves. This is a call, in view of my presentation. I would like to a speech in a sense. I speak to just make a call to those young academicians to decide what they are doing and what they should be doing in academia. Why we somehow failed to participate actively in the academia because things have changed. I mean, we were the leaders of academic research. We were the leaders of humanity for a very long time, but at those times we were somehow easily and happily participating into what's going on in academia. There was a metaphysical perspective prominent in academia, but that metaphysical perspective is eliminated. In order to understand what has changed with respect to science and academia, I mean, briefly, of course, I will go to the origins of this discussion, and I will name, of course, Aristotle, who is accepted to be the founder of logic first, and then he just said that, I mean, the best way of applying, or the first way of applying logic in general to produce knowledge is Burhan, in Greek, apodeixis, which is scientific knowledge. He said, I mean, through certain premises, through bedihi premises, through using logic, by meaning inferences, we produce knowledge and we call it Burhani knowledge. But of course, this is not the only way of using logic. There is another way of using logic, which relies on not certain but probable premises, so to say. In this way we employ logic and produce knowledge. This process is called dialectic. Later in my talk I will refer to both of these concepts. That's why I am mentioning them. Aristotle, it is his famous definition of science, scientific knowledge, Burhan. He says, we think we have knowledge of something simplistic and not in the sophistical way incidentally. When we think we know the cause because of which the explanandum holds that it is its cause, and also that it is possible for it to be, it's not possible for it to be otherwise. What is Aristotle saying here? He's saying that science is something intentional, where you look for the causes of something. You should know that those causes lead to that effect, and you should know that it is so necessarily. I mean, when you say all these things together, you are saying that you produce something scientific. And as I have said just a moment ago, for such scientific knowledge to be possible, the premises of that inference of scientific explanation should be certain. And that certainty is somehow attained or guaranteed through intellectual intuition, what we call noesis, or some sort of direct knowledge of things, or universals, or some certain relations which are there intelligibly. These things have changed. Later we are going to come to that. But this way of, I mean, Aristotle is a really kind of a, I mean, scientist as we think of it today. We know that he is the founder of almost all the academic disciplines, from botanic to zoology and meteorology and anything. But his definition of science has been transformed throughout history, especially by some Neoplatonic, so to say, like Plotinus philosophers. They transformed Burhan or apodeixis like, like the following. They thought that if scientific knowledge is about knowing the cause of things, and necessarily so, we need to, I mean, we cannot say that we know anything without referring to the first and ultimate cause of everything, which is the necessary cause, which is God. Therefore, scientific perspective and metaphysical and theological perspective are interrelated and intermingled within Neoplatonic conception. And in history, for example, Muslim philosophers or thinkers or scientists mostly adopted such a view. And when they did Burhan, they just didn't talk about zoology, but they think about everything, including the whole universe, with respect to the necessary and ultimate cause, which is God. And in that sense, that knowledge, of course, had some limitations or some perspective accompanied such a way of doing Burhan. For example, that perspective brought it with itself a teleological, so to say, perspective of nature. And within that perspective, you can do certain things and you cannot do certain other things. And there is a limit to developing certain technologies within that perspective. But that teleological view of nature has been, as we all know, replaced by the opposite perspective, the mechanistic one. In the teleological view, everything we think and think of in nature was self-moved, so to say. But in the mechanistic universe, the principle of inertia prevailed, and we started to think that, nothing is self-moved, everything moves through certain external forces, etc. And that way of thinking of nature and science has been, as we all know, very, very successful. And we tended to think that, our perspective of science, or our perspective of science intermingled with metaphysics, was wrong. That perspective was wrong. That is where we lost track of things. Okay, the Islamic community of scientists, in a sense, couldn't keep up with new way of doing science and doing philosophy of nature. And of course, some people, like German philosopher Kant, uh, uh, warned people that, we have made a big decision, big mistake, sorry, in confusing metaphysical knowledge with scientific knowledge, and we need to separate them. And he somehow criticized metaphysical knowledge as illusion, and he said that we have to confine our research and remarks to phenomenal world, to the facts, and we should stop talking about metaphysical discussions. He has written three critiques, as you might know or remember, and in each critique, he just declared that, there is a perspective of reality which is not scientifically knowable. For example, in his first critique, the critique of pure reason, he associated knowledge with time. He said that, we cannot only know things which are in time, and only can know them through some determinations of time. I'm not going to enter into the details of those philosophical discussions. And we can only know those things which are empirically given to us in our empirical intuition. And if the knowledge is confined to this perspective, he said that, those intelligibles, noumena, like soul or universe or God, are not knowable scientifically. You cannot say that there is a soul, or soul is immortal, or universe has a beginning or an end, or God exists or not. All these discussions, according to him, are illusionary, and all metaphysics is doomed as illusionary. And he said we have to change our perspective from all these discussions to facts and phenomena, and we have to, like the previous version of science in Aristotle, we have to separate metaphysical perspective from the scientific one, and scientifically we have to focus on facts and phenomena. In his second critique of practical reason, he just gave us another object, this time not an object of theoretical knowledge, but practical, so to say, activity, which is the highest good, the summum bonum. And he introduced that concept as a synthetic unity of virtue and happiness. He said, by being or acting moral, by subjecting our intentions of our actions to moral law, as he stated it, we can be virtuous. Virtue necessarily brings out happiness, and the combination of these two, which is made possible by human action alone, is somehow the ultimate object of practical reason. He said that we are not only natural beings or entities, but we are free agents, so to say, but our free acts or intentionally free acts result in certain effects in the phenomenal world, and they accrue, they just come together, and they result in a historical process. History, in accordance with the Kantian perspective, is a result of our actually free actions, so to say. But he said we cannot do science of history. I mean, like we do physics, we cannot do a history, a science of history. Therefore, historical process is itself an unknown for us. Finally, in the third critique, which is about both aesthetics and teleology, he just gave an account of the beautiful and seeming hierarchical classification of things. And then there, I mean, I will not go into the details of these discussions. He said, although, I mean, we know that there are organisms in the mechanical universe, we cannot know, I mean, scientifically, we cannot do a science of their being there as organisms, as teleological hierarchical structures, objectively. Therefore, he confined our knowledge into a space, so to say, where many important, I mean, previously and still important questions are unanswerable. I mean, we wonder if my soul is immortal or not. We wonder if, I mean, there is a God or not. We wonder where does this history go, or we wonder, I mean, as an organism, how do I, or as an organism having mental states and consciousness, how am I here? I mean, how is it possible that in a physical universe there is an organism? We cannot answer these questions, he says. Therefore, he limits our knowledge to some area. There, I mean, we do science, and I mean, this is what academia should occupy itself. Uh, I to these limitations, maybe we can just add something else. Since Kant was a physicist, he was not interested in so much to linguistics. I mean, later, as we know it, similar to physics, development of empirical linguistics occurred. If he had known, or if he had been interested in linguistics so much, maybe he would say that it is not possible to do science of the relation of signification. How something comes out to be a sign within a physical universe most probably is beyond, again, scientific inquiry. Uh, After Kant, of course, people somehow really got rid of, so to say, metaphysical discussions within academia. This is why we are calling it the elimination of metaphysics from academia. Later, but they criticized Kant's perspective as well, and we just reached a contemporary scientific method. There are very different models of scientific inquiry, but in order to give you the contrast with and parallelism with Aristotelian perspective, I am going to just name or mention just one method, which is the hypothetico-deductive method. Today, what we understand from science has three levels or three layers, so to say. We develop theories. How do we do that? Do we develop our premises through a certain kind of an intellectual intuition? No, we do not. We do not think that, I mean, we can know things intuitively with a certainty. What do we do then? We, within the limits of our linguistic constructions, within formal systems, for example, we construct concepts, we construct theories within language. We think that, I mean, objects that we are talking about are given to us through the medium of language, so to say, not through noesis and blah, blah, blah. Then, when I developed this theory, is it scientific? Does it explain anything? I am required to derive certain observational or experimentally checkable propositions from those theories. This is the second level, just like Aristotle says. I mean, the status of premises have changed, but I mean, the logical aspect of it has not changed. And finally, we just compare those propositions with facts and phenomena. And if somehow we think that these propositions comply with or conform to those facts on phenomena, we say that our theory explains something, and we consider at least it is corroborated, and we tend to think that we have a scientific theory. In this kind of a scientific approach, there are actually two contexts. One of the contexts is the context of discovery. The other is context of justification. You might be doing physics, you might be doing psychology, you might be doing educational sciences, you might be doing anything, whatever you like, okay? You try to develop theories to explain certain facts and phenomena, to make some predictions or rather retrodictions, etc. You need to develop a theory. You need a context of discovery. Today's perspective of science is not very much interested in how you do that. You might develop your theory by a divine inspiration, if you believe so. You may just go to a mathematics course or something, and you just realize that, I mean, a certain structure is useful to explain a certain phenomenon or fact. However you do this, or I mean, in your dream, you may see an old guy, I mean, with a white beard and tells you that go there and look for this. It is not important, okay? What makes your theory scientific is the context of justification. However you find your theory, if it is useful, if it explains things, if it is usefully making good or nice predictions to find our ways in this universe, then your theory has some value, so to say. But there is a very interesting question here. Where do we look for theories? Why do we look for certain theories to explain certain phenomena and facts? This brings out a certain question, which is this. We should just state it like this. Is there a context to the context of discovery? Okay, however you find your theory is not so much important. Okay, I mean, you just go and found your theory this way or that way. Okay, but why are you looking your theories there? Why are you trying to resolve certain problems and not others? What is the context of your research, context of your discovery? I am clear, right? I mean, you just get my point. This is what I would like to state here. I say that, or I claim that questions considering the context of discovery are the prominent questions in the dialectical debates that characterize academia's mainstream projects. This means something like this. As I have said at the very beginning, Aristotle was telling us that, I mean, yes, we are using logic to do science, but not every question is solvable through science. There are some discussions where we can just start with certain premises which are open to different interpretations. You may accept it as right or not, for example. These are dialectical discussions. Now, we realize that you are still doing science, yes, which is quite similar to Aristotle, except for the fact that we are developing our theories within a linguistic structure, and we do not tend to think that, I mean, we know those premises through noesis, blah, blah, blah. But there is another dialectical discussion ground accompanying all this scientific activity, and that activity, that discussion is dialectical, as I have said, open to interpretation and open to debate. And I just claim that that area of debates fill in the position of metaphysics once we have occupied ourselves with. I mean, instead of combining metaphysics and science together as we did in classical ages, this time there is another realm of discussions, which are dialectical discussions, which prepare the ground for a context which gives us the context of our discoveries. I am going to explain a little bit more what I mean by those. I will mention now, I mean, maybe you are occupied with too much with your own area of concern. I am going to open the discussion to other areas of academia. There are some really mainstream projects, and I am going to try to show you that there is an ideological core of many of these mainstream projects, and those discussions are not our discussions, or those discussions or those debates, so to say, determine a context within which we do science, but the way those discussions are handled, or the theses that are accepted within those discussions, form a certain ideological orientation such that we, the Muslims, do not feel comfortable within the scientific activity ourselves. Refika, oldu mu biraz bu?
Yes, of course, hocam.
Okay.
It's
Anyway,
exactly.
I will go over those questions a little bit fast, so to say. For example, there are such questions in academia we are occupying ourselves. Can language be produced in a non-human medium, or to what extent can artificial intelligence be improved? We are within it, okay? This is a mainstream project of academia. There are many sub-questions related to it. You don't need to know them, but I mean, people are occupying themselves with them. Can the syntax of language be produced in a finite theory? Can a computer program be written that can pass the Turing test? Most probably they are now. Can computational complexity problems, you don't need to know them, be solved in a way that allows us to solve difficult problems in a short time and with a limited memory, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. And there are many disciplines contributing to this, to the solution of these problems. I mean, philosophers, mathematicians, logicians, linguisticians, blah, blah, blah, they all are occupied with these problems, and they want to realize this aim. Actually, let me mention a few things at this point to draw your attention to the main topic of my presentation. In this discussion, we do not know if really we can reproduce language in a non-human environment. Is it just a mere illusion or a projection, or can we really create a program or a machine in our image over there? You see, technically, trying to develop artificial intelligence is not a problem. But if you tend to think that you are trying to realize a human-like something over there in your image, you tend to be like a god. You want to be like a god, creating something in your image. Not only that, you as well want it to be superior to you. You are constructing something and expecting it to resolve your problems. Somehow you start to worship it, okay? And you happen to expect solutions to your problems from it. It's like an idol, okay? I mean, some part of the problem is not a problem at all. I mean, artificial intelligence is something like a refrigerator. I mean, it is very nice and we use it. But that ideological core of those dialectical discussions and the way the purposes are stated is quite problematic for us Muslims. Refika, is it clear? Hope so. Or, for example, can the how shall I? Can the workings of consciousness can be reduced to a neuroscientific or neural basis is another big question. It is the final frontier of academia, so to say, holy grail of academia. How can we give an account of mind or consciousness or blah, blah, blah, blah? Therefore, we are occupying ourselves with, can the question of how consciousness exists in a physical universe be answered? Can neural correlates of mental activities be found? Blah, blah, blah. And there are lots of, again, disciplines are interested in them. But still, again, these are very nice projects and they should be developed, yes. But still, there's a problem. What is life? What is consciousness? Is it possible to manipulate what is physical to create life or consciousness? This has very interesting theological connotations. If you just, I mean, we do not really know if we can really reduce everything mental and everything related to consciousness into what is physical or what is neurophysical. We do not know, but this is why this cannot be decided scientifically. This is why it is a dialectical discussion. But you tend to think that, I mean, let's say that it can be done, and you just spend millions and billions of dollars on this research. Okay, do it. But the assumptions behind, again, this kind of a thinking seems problematic for us Muslims again. Let me tell you something else. Some people know that I am interested in these questions, and from different parts of Turkey or the world, some students are sending me messages. They are saying that I have got a scholarship from this project about AI or this reduction project, blah, blah, blah. If I accept it and if I just contribute to this project, do you think that I go to hell? They ask. This is quite interesting. As I have said, not the technical scientific part, but that ideological core is quite dangerous. People are reluctant in being a part of such a project if it aims at something which is ideologically not so much innocent and not so much, I mean, acceptable from a Muslim point of view. Can cosmology be completed within the confines of mechanistic physics? Maybe you know, I mean, for centuries, our Kalam alims, Kalam scientists or academicians occupied themselves about this Hoods problem, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if this universe is finite, if it is created, if it is starting at a certain point and it is going to at a certain point, blah, blah. Now, people discuss all these questions within a scientific source, so to say. Can a general theory of mechanics be developed that would bring together classical and quantum mechanics? Is it possible to reach the energy levels of the periods when the universe was formed in the experimental environment? Can the basic parameters of the universe be calculated? What are we going to do by resolving all these problems? Scientifically, you are going to answer this question. If the universe has a beginning, or there are universes before it, within which our universe has been created, blah, blah. As I have said, these questions are not so much innocent. I mean, it is not merely a scientific project. It is pertaining to a dialectical discussion, maybe cannot be decided only through scientific means. But as I have said, it touches a problem concerning the relation between a necessary being, a God, and the universe, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, should we a part of such a research or not? I mean, this is a huge problem. Can living organs be produced in a non-living environment? I mean, I will not go in detail into these examples. Or can personalized treatment systems be developed? Or can the problems caused by addiction be fully solved? Or can what happened in the past be known in a way that reveals its impact in the present? Or can democratic political orders be established? For example, I mean, let me stop here. I just talked a lot about theoretical issues. For example, this might be more interesting for you. We are really have a huge mainstream project about democracy. We are trying to find out in comparative politics the ways of democratization, blah, blah, or facilitating it. Can democratic political orders be established? Can democracy and sanctity coexist? It is quite interesting for us. Can discrimination be eliminated? Can structural violence be prevented? Can a non-exclusionary construct of we be developed? Do we want all these? Are we willingly part of these projects? I mean, let me tell you something like this. For example, as I have said about Kant, Kant was saying that, I mean, we cannot do a science of history, but later, since, I mean, whenever you say people that you cannot do this, human being is such that, I mean, he tries to do that, okay? He just tries to pass that limit. For example, consider Hegel's perspective, for example. He just developed all his philosophy to develop a logic of historical process and those moments following each other in a structural way to reach a state level where people exist within a legal whole happily, so to say, like a heaven in the world. But in order to reach that level of history, you have to pass from certain moments. The moment before the state level is the level of morality in his, for example, book about philosophy of right. He says that in order to reach that final position, morality should be superseded. I mean, since the moral perspective somehow limits the possibility of the development of a legal formal system, those who stick to a certain law, moral principles is in a sense a threat for the continuation of this historical process. Therefore, if you are sticking to a moral viewpoint, you might be considered as reactionary. İrtica. The concept of being reactionary is related to this conception of history, and it is part of a mainstream project of academia. I mean, should I be happily a political scientist searching for the possibility of democracy? In a sense, yes, democracy is nice, blah, blah. But in a different sense, you need to find ways of criticizing certain values, certain value systems to give way to a democratic system. For example, Nietzschean famous motto, revaluation of all values, is pertaining to this discussion as well. I mean, when I do, for example, sociology from a Nietzschean point of view, I just criticize the common prevailing values within a society, and I am part of resolving those values, so to say, to pave way to democracy, for example. I am an agent of this. Should I be a part of this project in this sense? There are very, very different such problems. Now I am going to make some observations and some suggestions and try to finish it, but it's already an hour. Oh, too bad. Refika, how much time do we have?
Actually, we allocated 1 hour, but if everyone is happy to go through, we can continue. If you have time, of course,
If they
Hocam,
are not
first of
happy,
all.
let me just stop here for some time. How many people are there? Okay. Now let's continue. I will just make a summary of what I have said and then move to the final, and the most important part, the Muslims and the academia part. Just a moment ago, as I have said, I said, what is this? I just talked about a fundamental orientation, which is the elimination of what is metaphysical from the philosophical and academic discourse. And I say that this elimination constitutes the context in which some basic questions that are discussed within academia arise, and the eliminated metaphysics is replaced by a dialectical discussion. I mean, people find meaning in such discussions, and yeah, for example, just saying that, can we really construct or develop a certain program or a machine in our image? Let's keep on searching this. You find funds, okay? People are excited, and people just say that let's try if we can do. In that sense, as I will say it in a minute, it is in line with the development of capitalism as well. This kind of thinking is another kind of orientation emanates from the elimination of this metaphysics, which is the naturalistic or physicalistic perspective. You do science from this perspective, and you try to stuck in everything within this perspective, and you try to explain away everything from this perspective. If it can be done or not is not known, as I have said. The transcendent, aşkın ground, as opposed to the immanent one, is excluded from this perspective, and the assumption that all big questions can ultimately be given or resolved in a scientific discourse. This is the ultimate perspective. Some of the topics of this dialectical debates are as follows. Can the structure of the universe, its beginning, if any, and its end, if any, if there's any, can be clarified within a mechanistic understanding of physics? I have given this example just a moment ago. Can a program or a machine constructed such that it imitates the basic activities of the human mind and eventually transcends them in such a way as to lead to a singularity? Can human existence be covered from a historical perspective such that it comes to an end where we settle in this world happily? To buy this world is a bad barter. It is an ayat, okay? How are we going to continue with this project is quite debatable. Such problems prevail, such dialectical discussions prevail. The projects developed on the basis of these questions constitute the mainstream projects of the academy. Perhaps the ultimate goals of these projects are not achievable, as I have said. But these projects are very much in line with the development of capitalism. On the other hand, these projects have problems in terms of their relationship with theology. Trying to Islam, this is quite important. If you are against this perspective, there's a way you can try. You can try to Islamize the scientific outputs. Islamization of knowledge project you might pursue, okay? But I respect that, by the way. If you are just fond of such a perspective, or if you are trying to contribute to this perspective, do not be offended. I am not so much against it. But it may not be the right strategy. This is my important point. There's an important drawback, according to me, to the Islamization of knowledge approach, which is this: trying to get sloppily attached to the academy in this way, maybe like building a slum on our own land. We have contributed to the development of sciences for centuries. Why are we doing something extra? I mean, like Islamization of knowledge. This is not according to me the analysis. What are we going to do then? For me, a better approach based on the idea that the truth is on our side. I believe so as a Muslim. I believe that truth is on my side. I am just how to say, the truth is revealed through the verses or through the sunnah of the Nabi, blah, blah, blah. I believe that I am on the right side. Then, a better approach may be to claim that if Muslims do not feel comfortable with the knowledge produced in a field, means that the process of producing that knowledge in that field has not come yet to an end. I mean, we have to develop a much more confident perspective, I believe. And we should say that, self-confidently say that this perspective or the point we came here is not satisfactory, maybe even it is wrong. From this point of view, the right strategy to follow may be to add our own questions to the mainstream projects of academia and try to participate in academia as ourselves. We have to add our own questions. This is my solution to this problem. Again, I am not going to go over, there are some more slides, all of the suggestions that I am giving to you. I will just give one example and I will again open the other slides. I may share my slides with you later if you are interested. For example, concerning object and the universe, as I have said, there are many questions that we are interested now. Can the world of the big and slow and the world of the small and the fast be merged within a single theory of physics, blah, blah, blah, blah. Yes, people are occupying with those things and failing, actually, by the way. I am interested in those problems, theoretical physics a lot, and we are really at a very undesirable point, actually, theoretically. What can we do then? I think we need to try to develop a new rational cosmology in which I am just analogically saying to the Aristotelian perspective, the sublunar universe is thought of as the phenomenal Earth and the supralunar universe as the space of quantum objects. And we need to develop a new theoretical physics, which is I am already working on, in which the constitution of physical elements is treated teleologically in relation to the one or God or the principal agent, and in which the interaction of these elements lies at the ground of the mechanical universe. Why should we do that? Today, although let me tell you something first. There's an American philosopher, Thomas Nagel. Maybe you heard his name. I have a book of him. I'm going to mention a book of him, the title of which is quite interesting. Mind and Cosmos. What was the name of it? Why is this perspective is certainly false or something like this? I believe that this perspective of doing physics and cosmology is false. In which sense it is false? You cannot explain qualified wholes within this perspective, including the elements, including the molecules, especially the organisms. You cannot explain it. You need to plug into this perspective something transcendent, something teleological, and rethink almost everything within theoretical physics from a new perspective. I have such, this is too much for this talk. I have such suggestions for very different problems and different areas of research. As I have said, I can share my slides with you. I am going to conclude my talk by saying just a sentence in the end. I don't want to take so much of your time from now on. This is my question. I mean, as Muslims, can we develop a view of scientific knowledge in harmony with the principle of Tawhid, encompassing all knowledge of being, that enables us participate in life as ourselves, as a consequence of which we can distinguish between what is in our favor and what is in disfavor to us. Buraya bir şey yanlış yazmışım. Let me see. I will say just one more sentence before finishing. Are my slides back?
Yes, but not full screen.
Now is
Yeah,
it full
now,
screen?
yeah. Now it is.
This final part is quite important. This final sentence is the perspective of fiqh, you know. In the current situation of science and academia, I do not think that human beings really know what is in favor and what is in disfavor to them. Therefore, we Muslims have an obligation, not to ourselves, but to all humanity, to change and criticize that perspective. And as I have said, be more confident, pursuing our own questions, and in a sense, change this world for a better one. I mean, the ultimate problem, as I have said, is about being an effective moral agent. And this can only be done through achieving a theoretical lapse, so to say, within academia. Thank you very much for your patience. Based on the fact that, I was just reading the question that I am suggesting concerning the consciousness. Can we reconsider the establishment of self based on the fact that the act of the principal agent, God, I mean, that establishes the living thing is included in the theoretical framework? The reason why I'm asking this question is this. Let me open this sharing part. We are such creatures, I mean, as human beings, that we can put objects before us as individual unities and make judgments about them or talk about them, but constructing something with inner unity is almost miraculous. People do not realize that. When you study computer science or artificial intelligence kind of things like that, you understand how that inner unity thing is not achievable but with computational or mechanistic means. Constructing or constituting individual unities in your experience is actually a reflection of your inner unity as an organism yourself, actually. And I believe that this kind of a capacity in its very primitive form exists even in the single cell form organisms. I mean, I hope I can just express myself. It's a bit difficult. We are not only in relation with our environment physically, I mean, through the laws of physics. We present ourselves this reality or the individuals within them from a different perspective. It is actually a transcendent perspective. Why? For example, consider this object. This is a synthetic unity. I mean, it has quantificational parts, certain relation between a substance and an accidents. It has causal relations with things, blah, blah, blah, blah. But I just can consider this as a single thing, and all these properties it has, all these parts it has, within a unity, like all the elements or parts belonging to this object within a set, mathematical set, in the sense that all these parts, although in themselves they are physically related, side by side, close or far, before or after, blah, blah, when I just represent that individual thing to myself, all these elements and properties are represented to me as if they are in a whole, which are not side by side, which are not one after another, which are not in causal relations. I can put this before me in this form. That is why I can just give a judgment about this side or that side of that object, or I can do pragmatically do anything about it. It's this side or that side. My freedom of action, or my freedom of giving different judgments about this object, comes from my capacity to present this object to myself within this structure. I am not related to this object only physically. As I have said, the most primitive organisms have the same capacity. For example, take a cell, which is surrounded by certain elements, certain food, so to say. The experiments show that it just comes into touch with a certain part of this food first, and then another part, and then another part, because physically it is related to all these environmental elements or parts, but it has a self, so to say, and can present everything around itself in the way we present ourselves these complex objects. In that sense, the development of any organism in a vertical manner, developing this capacity in different forms, is a key of explaining how consciousness happens to arise in a physical universe. The transcendence perspective, if the transcendence perspective is added to the picture, then and only then you can have a possibility of explaining how consciousness arises in a physical universe. I hope I could explain myself.